Oh. All right, there we go. Hi, welcome to everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of OUTtalks with OUTshine Film Festival. My name is Ebony Rhodes, and I am a board member of our festival. And again, welcome to, we're going live here on YouTube and Facebook for this great conversation we have today about people of color and representation in LGBTQ plus film. So we have some great trailers to show you of our upcoming festival and panelists to discuss. So again, we've got our 22nd OUTshine LGBTQ plus film festival coming up with opening night with a drive-in on August 20. We're going to have over 11 days of great films, and we really want you to be a part of the experience. So again, OUTshine, we're going to be showing 80 plus films with 44 unique screenings. We'll have interactive virtual events, and we will be featuring filmmakers and talent live for Q&As for those events. So we hope that you will join us. All right, so let's jump right into our conversation today. I'm going to introduce our panelists. Let's start with Octavia Yearwood. So we're so excited to have her. She's an artist, author, motivational speaker, and radio host. She's currently working on a docuseries, The Transform, which completed its first season about Black trans women. And she founded Team O in 2009 with the purpose of uplifting students of all ages. She's also the author of How the Hell Did You Do That? Octavia, tell us a little bit more about yourself and maybe what you've been up to. How's COVID treating you?
Hi, what's up? So COVID is a toxic relationship, you know. 1 minute it feels like it's not that bad, and the next, and maybe just the world is like that. So yes, the docuseries just wrapped the first season of the docuseries that I did with Carrie Cho Johnson. It's on YouTube right now. The Transform. The actual docuseries is about trans people on the spectrum. It's not only about trans women. The first season started with trans women because trans women, you know, they led the liberation for the LGBT community, and I thought it was, and also they are dying at a really rapid rate, and I wanted to create something that could help to perhaps, you know, save a life. The docuseries has been doing really well, and yeah, I'm living in Miami from New York City, from Queens, loving it. And did I answer all of your questions?
You did. Thank you. That sounds great. I'm happy for you to be a part of this conversation today.
Same.
All right, so now let's introduce David Ninh. He's the director of press and publicity at Kino Lorber, where he oversees the publicity release of over 25 plus films per year. David previously worked at Kickstarter and advised creatives across multiple arts and culture categories on effective strategies to fundraise, engage, build audiences for campaigns. David?
Hey, everybody. My name's David. You got my background. In addition to working in PR, I also am producing 2 trans projects. One by Sandy Jaffe called More Than a Name. She adopted a trans Chinese girl and who has transitioned now and is an adult. And the other one is called The Queer Beat, and it follows trans journalist Kate Sosin as she investigates and dives into the murder of Rita Hester, whose murder spurned Transgender Day of Remembrance. So I do a lot, and queer storytelling is very important to me, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. I love it. I feel like we're already jumping into the intersectionality of this conversation and all of our identities intersecting. That's great. Okay, so let's jump to Timothy Barber. He's the executive director of Black Archives Historic Theater and Cultural Arts Complex here in Miami. Timothy was appointed the ED of the Black Archives in August of 2009. Under his guidance, the archives opened the Historic Ward Cultural Tourist Gallery, which showcases rotating exhibits highlighting the accomplishment of Black people in Miami. Timothy?
Thank you so much for having me. You stated who I am here at the Black Archives Lyric Theater, which is the oldest performing arts theater in Miami, built in 1913 by Black businessman Jeter Walker. Excited to be a part. We are home to the OUTshine Film Festival. We're excited about the partnership that we do with OUTshine for providing a space for all people to populate. And we just sad that we're not here this year at the archives, but we're here in spirit, and thank you for having me on this panel.
Yes, and I think the only question is, so how is the COVID quarantine? How are you dealing with it?
Yeah, well, as a institution that depends on rental dollars and activity and performances and cultural arts, it's been very difficult not to generate the revenue that we need. But we're just thankful that we're like squirrels, and we kept stocking up our acorns for a moment like this. So we're in a good place, and we just continue to pray for us as we go further deeper into this unknown of COVID-19. And it's just interesting that there's nothing new under the sun. This has happened in different form in different times of our lives. So we're just going to weather the storm as human beings and come together closer as people.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, so now I'd like to bring Michael Gamilla. He's the programming director for ImageOut, which is Rochester's LGBT Film Festival. Michael has been programming for ImageOut for 15 plus years and is a regular around the film festival circuit, with annual visits to Berlinale in Germany, Frameline in San Francisco, and many more. Michael.
Hey, good afternoon, and thanks for having me. Like you said, I'm the programming director of ImageOut. We're a volunteer-run organization, so I have a day job, which, with being quarantined at home, I am not happy that my day job, my festival life, and my personal life all happen in the same space, which is crazy. And our festival is in October, so preparing for a virtual festival like you guys are doing is a pain in the butt. So it's keeping me busy.
Yes.
But happy to be here.
Thank you for being here. Yes, no, we can all definitely relate here at OUTshine. It's a labor of love. All right, our next guest, Doug Spearman. He's the CEO of Esplanade Pictures and the Ogden Group Entertainment, and current board member for Outfest in Los Angeles. Both of Doug's feature films have played here at OUTshine, Hot Guys with Guns and From Zero to I Love You, as well as he's a star on a feature hit TV show, Noah's Ark, which is one of my favorites, so I'm happy to have Doug here. Doug?
Hi, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the board with these, not the board, on the panel with all these people. I'm really impressed listening to everybody's resume, and I'm happy to join the conversation. And I'm in New Orleans, by the way. I was in LA for a long time, and I got to New Orleans right in the middle of my very first Mardi Gras and in time to get locked down. And so here's where I be in New Orleans.
That's great. Okay, thank you. All right, and we are really excited. We do have a special guest today, one of the stars of our first film that we're going to be featuring. Slayman is a Lebanese-American TV and film actor. He most notably played the role of Tarek in the 2007 film The Visitor and the role of Jesus in the American TV miniseries Killing Jesus, in addition to a number of American TV series. He is a Vanguard Award recipient at 2019 Fort Lauderdale edition of our festival, OUTshine, and he's a star, again, of the screening of this year's virtual film festival, Breaking Fast. Oz?
Hey, good to be back. Remember, like last year, I was in Fort Lauderdale, doing this. But thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel. It's good to be here and to be able to do this. It's a blessing. You're asking all the panelists like how they've been doing with COVID and whatnot. First, Doug, I'm glad that you didn't catch COVID in Mardi Gras, because that was a big thing in New Orleans, I think. I'm unfortunately, COVID is really not on my mind right now. I'm heavily just focused on Lebanon, my country, and what happened to it. That's where my mind is at.
Understand that. We're all with you, and we're glad that you're here with us. We're grateful that you have that interview with us today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, and I appreciate what you just said. Thank you.
So, with that, do you want to actually, like I said, we would love to start off with your trailer. Do you want to maybe give an introduction to what we're about to see, the film that you were a part of?
Oh, you want me to introduce it before you play the trailer? Is that what you said?
Sure. Yeah. Since we have you here, if you just want just a really quick introduction of what we're about to see. We have a trailer for Breaking Fast.
Yeah, it's a rom-com. Simply, it's a rom-com. Basically, following the journey of an openly practicing gay Muslim Arab American doctor who basically has a wonderful relationship with his family. He's, as I said, practicing Muslim for real, like legit. Prays 5 times a day, goes to the mosque. His mother wears a headscarf. It's a wonderful example of what exists in the world and that what many, many, many people are not aware of. And I'll leave it at that.
Don't let last year define who you are this year. Start new. Start fresh.
You know I can't work out during Ramadan. I get headaches.
This is Cal.
This is Mo, my best friend. He's a doctor. Did I mention he's a single doctor?
Do not jinx this thing that isn't even a thing.
So you are interested?
I'm not saying that.
How often are you two breaking fast?
I don't know, like every night?
Every night?
You mean to tell me your immigrant mother would allow you to be like this and have no opinion about it?
My immigrant mother is nothing like what you see on TV.
What I know is that a gay Arab Muslim guy in WeHo probably knows what it's like to have people make assumptions about him.
You've been dealing with all of this alone?
Just be open. Be honest.
I'm scared.
You deserve to be loved.
Yeah, see, isn't that such a mystery?
All right. Great. So then let's jump right in, right? We're talking about freedom of color and representation. So, Han, again, it's your film. I'll direct the first question at you. What does it mean to see yourself and your identity represented on a big screen? What does that mean to you?
I mean, it's, how can I, so important, incredibly important. I mean, look, I'll give you a metaphor. I grew up and always seeing Jesus as white, as an example. I think Muhammad Ali Clay really said it beautifully. The images that you see as a child growing up really condition you, and sometimes it could be very negative and disempowering and diminishing. I think it's so important because it has the ability to empower people, a certain kind of people, or the lack of it will do the opposite.
So, how about, I mean, like Doug, you're another actor, right? So what is it? So I want to know, when was the first time going to, Hosted, you said that, it helped shape and form you, what the images that you see. So Doug, for you, what when you were young, what was maybe the first time you felt like you saw yourself on screen? What did that feel like?
Well, there are layers to that question because, which is a really great question, and I agree that the images you see, especially when you're a kid, really form you. So there are several parts to that. Like the first time I ever saw gay people on the screen, I saw the film version of The Boys in the Band when I was 7. And I thought, Jesus Christ, please don't let that be me. Because I found that such a hard, abrasive story that I didn't identify with it. And growing up in suburban DC and Maryland, and growing up in a middle and upper middle class family, I never saw that represented on television until the Cosby Show when I was I think a senior in high school. And then the first time I saw 2 black men kiss, a story that was about gay black men who had real lives, was actually the first time I saw Punks, which is Patrick Ian Polk's first feature film. And I remember getting to the end of that movie and seeing these two guys have what I consider the Hollywood kiss. And it was two black men, two brown-skinned men. I mean, it affected me so much that I actually stood up in my seat. I stood up in the theater and I was like, oh my God, it affected me so viscerally. And it was those moments. It was that moment when I realized how much of me was missing from our culture, from the representations of our culture. But yeah, and that's one of the things that spurred me into filmmaking of my own.
I mean, I'm just going to add one thing. I mean, that was beautiful what you said, Doug, but also it's simply about we exist to be seen. We are here. We matter. Our stories matter. We have value. Like Black Lives Matter. It's as important as that.
Yeah. So Octavia, I would love to hear from you. What about for you? When was the first time that you saw yourself on screen in the media? I know that you are prolific in different mediums as an artist and an activist. So what kind of drove you to take on being an artist?
What made me take on being a what?
Well, I kind of had different questions in there. I guess when was the first time you saw yourself reflected, and maybe how did that inform you becoming the artist that you are, writer, and author, activist?
I think that the first time I saw myself depicted was when myself, meaning a person who is within, not within the binaries, and also Black and also femi, was probably pariah, which was in into my 20s. Before that was the L word, where I saw lesbians, engaging, and it was like on television, and it still felt very taboo even then. But it was to see myself, and even pariah, I still didn't see myself totally, because I was never closeted, but I was never out. I grew up in foster care, so it kind of gave me a bit of liberation with having to explain who I was to anyone. But it's still society and media's output on what people are in the LGBT community, but also played a reason why I wasn't as outshining as I could have, and as most queer folks do, who do come out and who do find community. I feel like the media really showed a lot of the negative attributes of being a queer person, and it wasn't until about 3 years ago, 4 now actually, when I created a queer women's membership club with a friend at the time called This Girl's Lunchbox, where we had a space that was exclusive to queer women. And because we were Black women, it was also exclusive to queer Black women or women of color. So, our Latinx family and our family from different countries. And that was the first time, honestly, that I really saw it the way it should be, and saw it as community versus this kind of like very risque, over-sexualized, rejected group of people. So, my navigation and my experience with being queer and moving through community is one that's kind of like, it's a little different, I think, than most.
No, that's really well stated. That's great. And again, for any question, we'd love to have anybody jump in on their thoughts on Michael.
Yeah, I grew up in the Philippines, and the environment is conservative as far as being you're raised a Catholic, so you don't really see representation of gay people in the media, because homosexuality is considered a sin and frowned upon. And even if you're not Catholic, you grew up in an environment where that's just the given. So and that's dangerous for young people, for children, because when you don't see yourself represented, you think that there's something wrong with you because you don't feel the same way as others, and yet you can't find other people that are like you, that feel like you, or a community that supports you. So it's I think it's very important that the young people of today find that support, so they don't think of harming themselves. Even though I love films, I can't remember, because in the Philippines, what you see in the media, the gays are always presented as an object of ridicule or bad people. So, and you don't identify with that because you just feel normal otherwise. You have the same interests as your other friends. It's just that you're attracted to boys or girls for lesbians. But I think the first film that I remember seeing myself represented is probably 1993 in Ang Lee's The Wedding Banquet, where a gay Asian man, and he's in a relationship with a white boy, and it was about the same time I moved to the U.S. So it was kind of like inspiring in a way, something to look forward to, because when I was back in the Philippines, I didn't do anything to address my sexuality. So I just kept it all in. It wasn't until I'm in the U.S. that I kind of like came out, and once I'm out, it's out.
Great, thank you. I think that's a perfect segue. Actually, let's go ahead and show our next trailer, and then we'll keep the conversation going. For the next film, we have Twilight's Kiss, which is set in Hong Kong. Great. Love a different film. It's kind of from different parts of the world. There's different kind of sense of pacing and a sense of expressions of identity and connection. My next question, Michael, you mentioned community, right? The sense of community that's either present or not in the films, and kind of the troubled way in which we either identify or not with LGBTQ film. So here's my question, and David, I'm going to direct it to you first. As a person of color, right, we have different experiences depending on where we are, different parts of the country, East Coast, West Coast, North, South, different parts of the world. Do you feel like LGBTQ film helped shape a shared sense of identity?
For me?
Yes.
Oh, wait, I was confused by the question.
No problem. I'm constantly like putting in layers here. I'm like, there's so many things I want to touch on. But okay, so even though as people of color, right, all over the world, different parts of the country, we have different experiences of what that means, even in our own communities. So do you think that queer cinema, LGBTQ films, does it provide a shared sense of identity? Or do you think it kind of maybe adds to even more kind of multiplication of our identity or just differences, like highlighting so many differences?
Well, I think the big question also is, what kind of LGBTQ representation is out there for us to see, and I grew up in Houston, which is very diverse. And so, I was sort of unpacking imagery of just Asian males, first of all, I didn't see a lot of that representation, usually it was negative or desexualized or humiliated. So the first sort of Asian, two Asian people that I clearly remember as a kid was Dustin Nguyen on 21 Jump Street. and he was cute. So I was like, oh, okay, there's an Asian, he's Vietnamese. And then Margaret Cho, who I saw in like the Arsenio Hall show, and she was funny. So to me, I was like, wow, like, there's Asians doing different things. But as far as queer, I have to agree with Michael. One of the first things I saw with a queer Asian was Ang Lee's The Wedding Banquet. I mean, I was in high school, I was in 9th grade, and it was like a really big deal. I like watched it in secret, and when my parents were asleep, and to see like an Asian man kissing another man was like such a big deal. And even just the trailer that we all just watched for Twilight's Kiss, I haven't seen anything like that. I watched the film this morning, and I was a little bit I don't want to say the word taken aback. I just was surprised. I was like, wow, this is a really nuanced, beautiful film about two Asian elders. And like, I haven't even seen that. So like the fact that I'm 41 years old and it's 2020 and I'm just for the first time seeing that representation was still surprising to me. So I kind of feel like just need more of these kinds of stories from all different backgrounds, and I remember when Moonlight came out, what a big deal that was for the queer community, and we want to see more people of color. We want to see more of their stories and their backgrounds. But even for me watching Twilight's Kiss this morning, I was very surprised because I don't think I've seen a movie that had two male elder Asian leads, not only just kissing, but like trying to figure out how to be with each other, even though they both had their own issues and they were both closeted. So I think just more of these stories are needed, more of these stories are necessary from different backgrounds. And I think a lot of the festivals like OUTshine and OUTfest, and they do a really good job with that. I've gone to a lot of these festivals. I work at Kino Lorber, like the films that we look at, these kinds of stories are very important to us. So I just think we just need more stories like that from all different backgrounds, especially from people of color.
Definitely, I think that's it. The role that film festivals try to play is making space for those films. Haz, you're muted. There you go.
Okay. Now, okay, great. Yeah, to add to what David was saying, when I saw that right now the trailer for Twilight's Kiss, it broke my heart, like literally, because, and then what David said made me realize why it broke my heart, because I've never seen a story told about two gay men from an older generation. So this is what's happening in our world, right? We're evolving, and people from the older generation, they had it really bad in every sense of the way. And so seeing them struggle with that is something foreign to the young queer people. So I think it is also important, not just globally, but also for the LGBTQ community to tell their stories, because even though things are better now, I think it's important to also tell the stories of those who came from the past or lived from past generations and what they went through or what they had to go through. Yeah, I just wanted to add to that.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. If I can chime in just for a moment, and it's interesting that you talked about the Asian film, and what I'm noticing, being a venue that displays this, there's a history that is evolving. I have this saying that in order to change the narrative, you have to change the narrator. And I heard Doug mention the Cosby Show. Being a Black person, seeing yourself in media for the first time was around the Cosby Show that showed Blackness, and then successful Black people. Then you had the Fresh Prince, where you had a person that went from what proceeded to be the ghetto to now Bel Air. We started to see ourselves in this. But the biggest thing is that the Twilight's Kiss is it's more to it than just watching it from a perspective of seeing two gay Asian males. It's seeing the unfulfilled existence of two people that may have lived their life into this, but because of social norms, there was this fear to identify with themselves of who they were, and I think that was very, very, very important. And this narrative change is now seeing filmmakers that maybe from the queer community that are now creating these films, because there's this fight, just like civil rights, against somebody from telling our story. Nobody can tell our story better than you can tell your story. So if you want to tell a story about me, let me tell you that unidentifiable, unreprehensible truth about who we are and what we do. That's from a Black perspective, and I'm quite sure now we're seeing it as gay rights come into play. But then we're now seeing again when you talk about what is happening with civil rights again through police brutality and the Black Lives Matter movement and things of that nature. So the narrators are changing, and that's what I believe that is changing this impact on the way that the world sees people, accepting people for who they are. It doesn't matter what walk of life you're from, but just respecting the values that they hold as a person. And that's what I got out of both of those two particular films, which I think was very amazing. And the biggest thing was what's being said without being said.
That's great. Michael, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay. So just to add to your question earlier about shared experience with film, cinema, I think that's very true because gays are everywhere, and some of them are in rural areas. They might not have easy access to films or media. So when you see other experiences, other queer experiences from different countries, you kind of feel like you're one with the world because you realize that it's not just you. It's not just you having the same issues, but also when you see their success and how happy they've become, you also see the possibilities for yourself. And I also like to add that it's not enough that gay films are being made because they're getting made, but there has to be a platform for them to be shown because it's only recently that gay films are starting to find wider distribution. But for the longest time, you have to go to a queer film festival to see all these films in one place. And I myself, I started going to gay film festivals in the mid-90s, and I never realized that these films existed before because you had to wait until something comes on VHS or DVD.
Great. Okay. So then let's go on to our next film. The next trailer we have is of Cicada. Or this is a film clip from the film Cicada.
I hate fireworks.
The sound of freedom?
Who's freedom?
They're not fireworks, they're sparklers.
How do I hold it?
You gotta bend over. Oh, you got a dud.
You're a dud.
You're a dud. Look at this.
You're a dud.
You're a dud.
You're a dud. Ha! You're a dud. You're a sick gay.
The neighbors are watching.
Great. So I love this. So, all right. So we just saw another clip, the film Cicada. And Timothy, you did touch on this before, speaking about the lyric theater. But I want to jump to Octavia to ask you, how are stories important to affecting real world change and real world relationships? Telling stories.
Well, I think from my perspective, the number one reason is for yourself, for self-liberation, for self-expression, for self-acceptance, for self-love. As an example, I grew up in foster care, like I mentioned earlier, and I would never talk about it with anybody unless it was someone who was very intimately close to me. And then as soon as I started to speak out into the world louder, now all of a sudden, not only are opportunities coming, but then I found myself healing. And I found myself understanding more about how I feel about what happened and how I can reconcile that. And so I think that number one, stories are important because it helps the person whose stories are being told or the demographic whose stories are going to be told. And that right there is a path to freedom, for one. And then the next thing I think is important is because we are humans and our brains have a really uncanny ability to believe what we see. And also that includes believe what we don't see, which is why you see people, when you see more queer characters coming up, people are like, oh, people are trying to push a gay agenda. And that's because they haven't seen it so much. They've seen Tommy kiss Julie so much that Keisha kissing Keisha is weird, or even Keisha kissing Tommy is weird. It's like, we need to tell these stories so that even just the world can understand that these things exist, whether you see it in your neighborhood or in your community or not, it exists. And it also is a real life experience, and it's to be respected. It's to be honored. And honestly, it also is a way to show the world how to better show up for the other people in the world. If you only see one narrative and how people show up for that, you're not going to know how to show up for a trans person. You're not going to know how to show up for an Asian person, or even know how to respect cultures, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. Stories are important so that we as humanity can move forward in harmony and real love, not fake love.
Absolutely. It's great. So Timothy, I did want to jump back because we were talking about the lyric theater, and I think telling stories, especially right now in the era of Black Lives Matter. I mean, how do you see it affecting the actual community, right? Kind of taking care of these stories, protecting these stories.
Well, I think it's very important because the lifeblood of who we are as a people. You know, when you talk about the stories, you know, and many people in some instances think that queer, police brutality, civil rights, all this stuff just happened. It just all of a sudden popped out of nowhere. People have been kind of isolated in their own existence. Like historically, we just had for the Black Archives, we talked about back in the 50s, the 30s, 40s, how here in Overtown, which was Colored Town, a promoter would have a transgender night, you know, where when people frownly, like you said in the Asian or Philippine, I forgot my colleague that's on the panel was talking about what was happening in the Philippines in terms of whether you're coming out or not, where history has shown that it frowned on people because of their differences, you know, in many walks of life. By documenting this information, it tends to educate people. That's why we're excited to have this partnership with OUTshine, because we're showing from existence that no matter what walk of life you are, everyone is acceptable. And we're not going to be dictated by how negative people want to tell our story. I was kind of, it was interesting. We talked about the history back in the day and how people looked at people that were different, queer community. We talk about back in the day, a lot of times the comedians would cross-dress for jokes and things of that nature. This was brought into our attention, first of all, media-wise. Everyone did it, from Red Fox to Martin Lawrence and so on and so on. This was a way of introducing this to comedic genius. But at the same time, I felt that it was preparing people to be patient, preparing people to be open-minded to differences. And now that we're seeing these films that are coming out, and I do agree that the films, thank God for the internet, because we always say Christopher Columbus made the world small. Cell phones and internet made the world even smaller because we're able to connect now. People have these different platforms to showcase their films. I thank God for this opportunity, but I do believe on a grander scale, having these films come out like Twilight, but like backing first, these movies coming now, Breaking Fast, helps people to become more open to knowing what someone else's story is. And from a Black perspective, this is very important, and we're just excited to be a part of it.
Thank you. All right, so we do have one last trailer here, kind of lighten it up. Were you gay in high school? This is a live action animated short. Let's roll that trailer.
Were you gay in high school?
All right, Haz, I'm gonna pick on you first. Were you gay in high school?
Okay, now I knew you were gonna look at me because I was smiling. So that last bit was funny to me. How they ended it. Of course, I was gay when I was 6. What are you talking about, girl? Yeah, I was gay. Really, I remember knowing that something was different about me when I was like 6 years old, and at age 10. That's when I knew for sure. I am one of four children. I have 3 siblings. My oldest brother, he's a little bit older than me and my other brother. I'm the youngest, and he has, Playboy magazines. And my other brother stole his Playboy magazines, and then he called me. He's like, "Hey, come look at these." So I was like, a kid is like excited. Oh, let me see. And I'm like, he flips the page. And then I see, I'm sorry, we're all grown-ups, hopefully. I saw a pair of breasts, a naked woman pair of breasts. I started laughing, like loud, like so loud. I was 10, so no one can judge me. And it just happened very naturally. And then he flipped the page, and then there was a picture of a man and a woman, and the man was naked. And I was just like, my mouth was just open like that, and I couldn't stop looking. He wanted to flip the page again, and I put my hand on the page to not let him flip it. And that's when I knew. I was like, okay, this is interesting.
I love it. Okay, I'm going to pick on you next because I want to know. Were you gay in high school?
Yeah, as an Easter bonnet. I actually, I came out my senior year. I had I was one of those kids, I knew at 4 or 5, and my parents my dad knew when I was about 5 years old, and my mom figured it out when I was just before I was 7, and I'll never forget, my mother came in and she saw me playing, I was brushing one of her wigs, and I was setting it, I was rolling it, and she was standing there in the doorway with a cigarette, and she's like, "You're pretty good at that. When you're finished, why don't you brush out mommy's fall?" And so, she instantly got a lady's maid when she figured it out. And they were always surprised that I had girlfriends in high school. They were like, "What are you doing? What are you bringing her home for?" And when I was in high school, I was dating a girl my senior year, and I was in love with my best friend. And my girlfriend could never understand why me and this bad boy who got bad grades and drove a muscle car and smoked a hell of a lot of pot, and I were friends. And I told her in bed, I said, "I'm in love with you and I'm in love with him." And she said, "That's nice." I said, "No, I'm in love with you both the exact same way." And I was a senior in high school. She said, "Well, I think you ought to tell him." And she and I are still friends, and he and I are still friends, and I'm really glad that I did. So yeah, I was big old gay in high school.
Oh wow! Shout out to Supportive Bay.
No kidding. Yeah, Carrie, amazing. Wish I'd have married her.
I would love to hear anyone jump in on this question. I got a tip that Octavia, you were smiling when you closed the trailer.
You got a tip. It's fake news. No, I'm playing. They was right. No, I mean, I was laughing because I was totally gay way before high school, but I never explored it. So yeah, like I didn't explore my sexuality. I think I just went through all the motions that everybody went through, right? Where, you know, you're like, I'll never be with a girl, you know? Then it's like, I'll never go down in a girl. I'll never let a girl go down. I'll never be in a relationship. I want to get married to a woman. And then it just shifts and it just changes, you know? So, yeah, I was definitely all my life. I was gay all my life. Yeah, pretty queer. Yeah. I don't have any other fun stories. Yeah. Other than actually my first kiss with a girl was similar to Doug's inner experience. They happened at the same time. So that was cute. I didn't end up with either one of them, and I don't know what either one of them are doing right now.
I love it. Go for it, Michael.
Muted. So, okay, now I'm so the thing with me growing up in the Philippines is I knew I was different. I just didn't know that I was gay because I didn't know what it meant to be gay. And you know, your idea of being gay is different from what you see in the media, and you know, you're not like that. But I knew that, you know, even from an early age, that I like to play with the girls more than the boys, and you know, I enjoyed what the girls were doing. So I knew things that I liked. I just didn't know they were gay.
Love it. Awesome. All right. So that's really, it's all the time that we have today. So thank you so much to all of our panelists today. I feel like this was, you know, a really in-depth conversation that we kind of moved through quickly. So I'm hoping that, you know, you'll join us for the film festival so we can keep having these conversations and keep this going. But thank you so much for taking the time. Before we close today, I do want to let our viewers know that we do have a chance. If you were piqued, if your interest was piqued by any of the film trailers that we showed, either Breaking Fast, Twilight's Kiss, Cicada, or Were You Gay in High School, you have a chance to win free tickets to see all 3 films, or receive an Out Pass, which is good for 6 free films during our virtual film festival. So to enter to win, here's all that you have to do with 2 simple steps. First, subscribe to our YouTube channel. So this whole conversation will be archived there. You can watch it again. So check us out, OUTshine Film Festival on YouTube, subscribe, and sign up on our YouTube email list by midnight tonight. So if you sign up, again, so the way that you do that, if you go to our page in YouTube, you'll see the little social media banner. There's a globe there where you can email us, and that's all you have to do, okay? So if you enjoyed watching our show at home today, if you're a person of color, or if you identify as someone representing the LGBTQ plus community and want to support our cause and be a part of the experience during this year's virtual film festival, please stay connected with us, okay? And what better way to do that than supporting the upcoming virtual festival, where you can do it from the safety and comfort of your own home. So again, we're gonna show you on the screen. There's ways that we're always grateful for any donations. You can buy a ticket, tell a friend. You can purchase one of our festival passes. So there's many ways for you to support us. So again, I wanna, you know, as we close today, I know that we're all, you know, have a lot on our minds. There's a lot going on in the world, and to come and have this conversation really means a lot to us. So again, I really want to say thank you to Octavia Yearwood, to David Ninh, Timothy Barber, Michael Gamilla, Doug Spearman, and Slayman. So all of you, we love you. Please stay a part of the family.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks. All the love.
Thank you, guys.